So here I'm going to show you the long basting stitch first. And in this demonstration, I'm going to show you without knotting it or anchoring it, because with the, you may want to just be able to remove your basting stitches. So you don't usually want to anchor them. So I'm going to go right underneath where I already had the stitch. You're going to go from the front to the back and then just feel around maybe about a ½ inch. And bring your thread up and just leave maybe a 5 or 6 inch tail. Come back down and do the same thing. This is for joining layers of materials together for preparation. You might be tailoring. Oops, I almost brought my tail out. Doing some tailoring and you're layering different fabrics together. You're sewing batting to material. So this is a temporary stitch. I'm just going to keep going down. It's quite fast. You see, I'm just going down and then repositioning my needle. I'm going to go to the end here. Okay. As you see, I have a pin anchor above here. I'm going to go ahead and put another one here. And what that does is it allows it to not be pulled out while you're continuing to work on your garment, and also so you don't have to tie a knot. So I put the pin in. And then just take your thread and wrap it around like you're doing it like on an anchor on a boat, right? You're just winding it around. So this way you don't have to make a knot or anything in your thread. You just have this anchor here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other end. Okay, where I had started. Just do the same thing here. Okay, so now you have this basting stitch ready to just be pulled out when you don't need it, and you don't have to worry about knots or back stitches or anything. Now, on this top one, I did do a knot just to show that if you wanted to have just a pin anchor at the end and you want to do some adjusting of stitches, you could do that and it won't pull out at this end. But I prefer the anchor stitching. Small basting stitches would be used for, let's example, we're going to put together a sleeve on a jacket. And so you need to do a fitting. So these big stitches won't be good. When you see them in here, they're going to there's too much space. The small basting stitch will allow you to have a fitting, still allow to have it taken apart easily if needed. Okay, so it's kind of the same process as the large, except you need to control the stitches a little bit better and on the smaller side. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to leave a tail and I'm going to come down. So I'm going down and up. This is also like a running stitch. I'm going to show you the running stitch in a minute. Okay, and so if you were to use this to sew together your sleeves into your jacket for fitting, they're going to stay together a lot better before you bring it to the machine to sew it. I'm just going to let that hang there. And I'll do the same thing with the pin anchor. And then I started this one here, so I'll just put another one in the middle. And this will also help tidy up your samples as you're making samples. You won't have all these threads dangling, but you'll still have them there if you need to do some more stitching. Okay, so I'm going to do a sample of the back stitch next. And in my sample here, the stitches are quite small, so I'm going to do the next sample, next row of stitches a little longer for you so that you can see what I'm doing better, and then you can adjust it to be smaller for yourself. Okay. So pick the fabric up with your left hand, just go down, and then come up about 1/4 inch. Now a back stitch, unlike the basting, is considered a permanent stitch. So we want to, now we don't want to use the thread anchors or anything unless we're just stopping our work in the middle. So you want to actually anchor this. So I'm going to go back and do a back stitch. So if you see right here's where I came down, I'm going to come in a little bit before that. This is just to anchor it. And I'm going to come a little bit before that. I'm going to do this twice, maybe 3 times, depends if you need it more. I like this better than a knot because it's not as bulky. And should you ever need to take it out, it's easier. Okay, so, I lost my thread here. Getting a little messy. Okay. All right, now I'm going to start my first stitch. So this was just my anchoring, right there. So just come over. I'm going to come over, like I said, a little bit bigger to show you so you can see it better than the small. I'm going to go down, then I'm going to come up about halfway than what I just did. So let's say I went 1/4. I'm going to come up at 1/8. Okay, sorry for all this mess. Okay, hopefully it won't keep happening. In fact, I think I'm going to cut my stitches off. Okay. So now you see I've got that spot right here. That was my 1/8 that went under, so I'm going to go in between my 1/8 and on the other side of my 1/8, which will still make it about 1/4. The next one will make more sense because now I've got this established. So I'm right-handed. This is my left hand. This is my left hand, right? So I want to go now backwards towards the right and go straight down. Come up about 1/8 inch. So what you should really be seeing is this thread is in the middle of your needle. See how I've got the point of my needle here? I got the other point of the needle there. This thread should be in the middle. I'm going to pull it to the left. And there's your stitch. So in essence, I have like 1/4 inch that I'm dividing in 2. So I'm going to go back again. I think I'm starting to get small again though. And go back again. My thread is in between the entry of the needle. Back. Forward. Just always check that your thread is in the middle there. I'll do a few more so you can see what the back looks like. But again, going backwards. And then forward. And pull it. This is a very, very secure hand sewing stitch that mimics your lock stitch on your sewing machine. Forward. Backwards, forward. Okay, and I think that'll be my last one for this. So you can see it. So these are my sample right here. It looks pretty nice and neat, right? And then if I turn it over, this is what you should have on the back. And this is forming like what your sewing machine forms when it has the bobbin and the top thread. And the last one, I'm actually going to take this running stitch out and just do a new one. So the running stitch will feel similar to the small basting stitch, but sometimes the running stitches are used for example, gathering. And I'll show you that when I get the thread started. So I'm going to hold it in my left hand, no back stitch, no knots, and just, it can be about the same size as the small basting, but in this case, I don't go up and then down and stop. I just keep running with thread. So I go up and down, kind of making sure I'm getting similar stitch length. Just rocking it back and forth if I need to. And you can almost see already what's happening. It's allowing me to have some movement with the material, an exploration of the volume here. It's not exactly what we're doing the stitch for, but you can start to see what happens when you do some hand stitching. So I'm able to push I have a long needle. So able to do as much as I can handle. And then just pull your thread. And you could have pin anchored this so that when you start to pull, it doesn't come out. So you see it does look very, very similar to the small basting stitches, but you would be using this method as a real quick method. Then also like you could pull it to gather it. Okay, there's not too much difference, like I said, between the two stitches, but it's just a stitch that you can play around with more and it's quicker. The method I just showed you is a lot quicker. Okay, so you've got your large basting, your small basting, your back stitch, and your running stitch. Put some practice with the pin anchors. There's your sample.